This last weekend, Labour weekend, hard to get my head around. It was the weekend before that we had a general election, and was such a resounding change of government that some commentators have said, should we still call it Labour weekend? Because it seems that the New Zealand public said no. But, I mean, as we're in this transition time between the outgoing Labour government and the coalition, we're yet to get the details of that, of course, questions being asked about, so what was it that made the Labour government, which was so popular at 3 years ago at the last election, what changed in the last 3 years? Lots of post-election analysis happening at the moment, and jumping into that fray is Maryanne Spurdle from the Maxim Institute. Kia ora. Good morning. Thanks for your time today.
Hi, Andrew.
There was a significant change of mandate, as it were, to use the M word, that whilst we're not exactly sure of the details of what the next government will be, we know clearly that it won't involve Labour. Some of the commentary that has come from that as to the significant difference goes back to the Wellington protests. And even though, as a nation, most of us said, yep, okay, I'll get vaccinated, it seems that that there was a significant number of people who were unhappy with the way that the former government treated that situation.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about the analysis of the election is that kind of peripheral details get talked about, and there are big ones like the economy and stuff that clearly had an impact. But when you lose almost half of your voting base between one election and another, there's obviously more than just a few things going on. And it's really funny how the media here have not been mentioning the protests, which only happened last year. And you could sideline them and say, oh, it's just a few thousand people. And the main narrative has been that, well, it was the, kind of fringes anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that is certainly the case, that, but that was definitely the narrative of government at the time.
Yeah.
These guys are just flat earthers. These people don't have the cognitive ability to be able to engage with us. These people are knuckle draggers and have lost the right to protest. These people are a river of filth. I'm not paraphrasing. I'm quoting politicians here.
Exactly. And if you think that it's just a few thousand nutters, then there's no problem.
Yep.
If you think they're actually just fringe. So I think the government started believing its own PR, and the people who had problems with its policies, they sidelined as irrelevant. The thing is, if they're wrong about that, they're actually putting a whole lot of people offside. The fact that Winston Peters showed up and started talking to people, and the fact that he's back in with New Zealand First well over 5%. I think that is a hint that they misjudged things, and that they thought that their own support base wasn't there. A poll of the people who were there shows 30% of the people at the protests had voted Labour in 2020.
Wow.
And 16% had voted Greens. Only 16% had voted National. So this narrative that it was right-wing extremists running it, 27% of the people there were Maori.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think they misjudged it big time as far as dismissing them, not talking to them, pretending that it wasn't actually their policies that had caused people to suffer.
And for a government who seems to be dedicated to having a focus group to decide their policies, that they weren't doing polling in what was the largest protest that we've seen for a long time, that they weren't even saying, hey, let's invite a spokesperson from this group to come and talk to us, or we'll come and talk to them, that there was this dismissal and refusal to engage. I think a lot of people didn't like that as a look.
No. And all the parties bought into it. They went, oh, it's too risky. We don't want to be affiliated with the genuinely fringe actors who did come to participate. But ignored the fact that the thousands of people there were representative of hundreds of thousands of people elsewhere who didn't have the time or resources to spend 3 weeks camped out at Parliament grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that they missed was there were people who called it before the protests actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't, this has been stirred up by outside actors.
Yep.
This was actually a groundswell of New Zealanders who were showing up because of their own experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what stuck with me, I remember this stood out to me before the protest even happened. And I looked back to find out when this was, October 2021. So when these policies about vaccine passports, excluding those who hadn't been vaccinated from public life, basically, mandates, which put a whole lot of people's jobs on the line if they didn't make that decision. Angela Ballantyne is a bioethicist. She also had been an advisor to the government, I believe, before that. She was interviewed on Q&A before all this went down. This is what she said. I think a major risk with the vaccine certificates or passports is that they are divisive. We, at all costs, want to avoid stigmatizing certain sectors of New Zealand, pushing them further to the margins, labeling them as a threat for the rest of us. I mean, that kind of summed it up. The government did that. It divided us. And so this week's column, my thesis is that if a government divides us, they're not going to do well. And I think that's what happened. Economy aside, the other things aside, I think they lost the election in 2021 when those policies came out.
And honestly, looking at what's happened, it wasn't that any particular party won the election, is that the Labor lost it. Everybody else did better and got more seats, given that Labor lost half of its MPs. This is a shocking indictment against perhaps a range of policies, but this one in particular. And I think it also says something about how maybe here in New Zealand we've just got used to MMP and coalition government, because one thing which, I mean, may be surprising to people, some people may be even shocked at this statement, but it seems that a Labor government with Winston Peters as a part of a coalition is more palatable to the New Zealand population than one without Winston Peters. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow, but that seems to be, well, if not Winston Peters, then other coalition partners, because I think it's also pretty clear that if there were other coalition partners, perhaps in particular New Zealand First, in the government at that time, that vaccine mandates wouldn't have got across the line.
Yeah, well, they would have had to have listened to other voices. Yeah.
So, I mean, from this, lessons learnt for the incoming government, I suppose, you know, there will be coalition partners, but I suppose it's not enough just to have your tribe and to have PR. Perhaps PR got in the way of democracy in this case.
Yeah, totally. And if a government doesn't want to have to work with Winston Peters, then they should probably do a better job of appealing to the people he's appealing to, you know? Leaving the door open for those voices to be heard instead of pretending that anybody who's remotely associated with any of those messages is, you know, irrelevant.
No, hey, a fascinating article. Now, that is posted, I understand, on the Maxim website, maxim.org.nz, so people can take a look at that there, and perhaps
it'll be up on Thursday.
Oh, okay. I'm getting
but it's on ZB Plus now. So ZB Plus is actually they've got dibs, but it will be on our website on Thursday.
They got the scoop. But look, I can wait till Thursday. It is a great article indeed. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
Thanks, Andrew. See you later.